live from London, England. Less than a minute now until the year 2000 reaches the shores of Great Britain. And in the Millennium Dome, with the Queen and the Prime Minister and thousands of others in attendance, more than 1 million lining the Thames River, the final 30 seconds of the 1900s. Sounding out its warning of the approaching moment. When the first major gong goes, it will strike 12 midnight. And a 4-mile stretch of the River Thames will erupt in a 200-foot high flame. Here it goes. Millennium arrives with a spectacular fireworks display in the middle of London, stretching along the Thames River. Thames, of course, winds its way through the very center of the heart of London. There's Westminster, the Houses of Parliament there in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. There's a shot from the other side of the Thames of the same building. Lasers and fireworks. The Millennium Ferris wheel there, you just caught a glimpse of on the other side of the Thames River. And the National Beacon in the middle of the Thames River. The British like to think that because they're the home of Greenwich Mean Time, but really, very technical. The new millennium really starts there. Well, it's certainly starting there with a bang in London tonight. They're saying now that upwards of 2 million just along the Thames, lining the Thames on either side to watch this display. But it's the kind of view surely you can see anywhere in London, in downtown London anyway right now. A spectacular sight. An hour ago, you saw that spectacular sight in Paris, the Eiffel Tower. Which was better? Hard to judge. They're both pretty spectacular. Well, also in the same time zone, in Iceland. Look at this in Reykjavik. Not a bad show here, too. quite something in Iceland. Just a wonderful display here as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of fireworks over the last 14 or 15 hours, and as we said when we were seeing Paris, sometimes you get sort of lulled into thinking they all look the same, and at times they do, but these have been spectacular through Europe, now Britain and Iceland. The beauty of this display, unlike some of the others, this is a coordinated effort, both the government ones and private fireworks displays going at the same time in Iceland. Now to Lisbon, Portugal, also on the same time zone as Britain and Iceland. This is tape delay. This is what it looked like just moments ago when the clock struck midnight, 5 minutes ago. Huge outdoor party in the middle of Lisbon. You can hear all the ships in the harbor sounding their horns. Just imagine if you'd been flying over Europe in the last hour. Now, not too many planes were up there in the last hour with the concerns about Y2k. But my gosh, if you had been, it would have been quite the sight from the air. Much of the world now into the year 2000, because after this time zone, going into a bit of a black hole as the time zones cross the North Atlantic, the South Atlantic, heading towards North and South America, and of course to Canada. But let's go back from Lisbon, Portugal. We go back into the heart of London, where the fireworks continue. That wall of flame along the Thames River. We're going to take a circuit around the British Isles now. We're going to look at London for a bit, but we're also going to visit Dublin, Edinburgh, you almost shudder to make the comparison, but it's got to be nearly 60 years since the sky over London has looked like this. Of course, in a much more difficult and far from a ceremonial moment in the middle of the Bloods. But here they celebrate in big fashion. We're in Dublin now.
Welcome Dublin with the African sound system in the house. Let's go. Yeah.
And a performance on stage in Dublin as the clock ticked over to midnight. This is in Dublin's historic Marion Square, a huge free concert. This band's called the Afro-Celt Sound System. They're going to perform Whirly Reel 2. The story of the epic struggle between good and evil. Let's watch in Dublin, Ireland. On a night of amazing performances through the capitals of Europe, the United Kingdom, Iceland, yet another one here in Dublin, Ireland. And we'll lose our feed from Dublin, but it's been well worth the moment. The new millennium has arrived in Ireland as well, as it has in London, where Anne McMillan is standing by once again. Anne, you promised quite a show along the Thames, and it sure was.
What a spectacular way to see in a new millennium. And Peter, I feel very privileged, not just because I'm still watching this fantastic fireworks display, but because I can now greet you from the 21st century. Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you. We're looking forward to it. It's going to creep its way across the Atlantic, as you know, and we'll be getting ready for about 3 hours from now when it hits Newfoundland. Now tell us, Anne, we got to clean up a couple of business details. Two things, security and Y2k. It's after midnight. All the lights seem to be on in downtown London, no doubt about that. Have you heard of any problems as a result of the Y2k scare?
Not at all yet, but I think probably the fireworks are making so much noise that anybody who does have a problem isn't being heard. But security so far has been fabulous, and the police are now saying that there are probably 2.5 million people in central London. No problems yet, but there are enormous crowds. I don't know if you can see behind me because it's a bit dark, but the whole of Trafalgar Square is absolutely full. So once these fireworks are over, it's not quite clear where all these people are going to go. So I think that this is a problem. There's a bit of a crowd control problem, but so far people are just having the greatest time.
Well, we want you to have a great time too, Anne. You've been terrific for us all these past 14 hours as you've led us up to midnight in Britain. Why don't you now go and enjoy a little bit of it yourself? Thanks for talking with us, Anne.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
have a
bye-bye.
great New Year's.
Anne
Bye.
McMillan joining us live from London on top of Canada House, the Canadian Embassy building, located right in Trafalgar Square. It's an incredible place to be positioned, and we're allowing our friends, good friends at the BBC, to use that location as well tonight to shoot some of their spectacular pictures of the celebrations that are taking place in London. Now, we've got 45 minutes left in our coverage before we're going to break away for, you know, the annual New Year's Eve special by the Royal Canadian Air Force. Supposed to be a great one this year, as always. Then we'll be coming back live here with our continuing coverage of the Millennium. You know that it's now crossing the North Atlantic, approaching our shores, still a little more than 3 hours away before it hits Newfoundland, 3 hours 45 minutes through the rest of Atlantic Canada, and then marches across the country. We're set up, we're ready to go here on locations from coast to coast to coast. You don't want to miss a moment of it all. Canada 2000, 2000 today. It continues in just a moment.
Never in history have so many people been clothed and fed and taken care of. We have more people now on the planet than ever in the past, and yet technology is allowing all of those people, or a large number of them, more than ever, to be taken care of, especially in Canada. And I think the combination of advances in computing power and communications and technology, those three put together, will continue to give Canada the chance to give Canadians the opportunity to do things that they're just barely capable of. And I think that's really the role of Canada in the next 100 years, is to give that quality of life around the world and within our own country to as many people as possible.
"2000 Today, a Millennium Celebration," is presented to you in part by Buick. Buick, real power, real comfort, real style.
Do rich people deserve more space than the rest of us? Was technology meant to improve their lives alone? Do the stars shine for their eyes only? Introducing the special edition Century 2000. With so many unexpected amenities for an unexpected price, it's the first limited edition that isn't limited to the rich. The new Century 2000 by Buick, a luxury car for everyone.
Richmond Hill, the fastest growing community in Canada. Why are so many corporations and visitors flocking to Richmond Hill? It's simple. With cosmopolitan countryside and big city amenities, strategically located in the heart of Canada's technology corridor, Richmond Hill really is the best of both worlds.
I'm personally extending an invitation to you to visit Richmond Hill in the coming year.
The town of Richmond Hill, roaring into the next century.
So I finally get to see your place.
Yeah, this is it.
It's interesting.
Hey, you want to go out for pizza?
Can't they deliver? I mean, can't we stay in?
Okay. Wait here and I'll...
In goes McCain Rising Crust Pizza. The crust rises up crispy and tender.
Excuse me?
Nothing.
It's loaded with toppings.
It's good.
Yeah?
It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It was fast, too. They always deliver to your back door?
Yeah.
McCain Rising Crust Pizza. Who can tell it from takeout?
Like tapes of what we did in the 20th century, like going out hunting or going for hikes.
I'd say my shoes, because they help me get around.
I put in the new Nunavut flag.
right, we're going to take a break now for a moment and look at some of today's other top stories. 8 days of horror are over now for 155 hostages held for ransom on a hijacked jet in Afghanistan. In the end, the hijackers did get what they wanted, the release of 3 other Muslim militants. And the hostages got what they desperately wanted, their freedom. David Common reports from the final stop on a long and terrifying trip.
This was the moment the hostages and the relatives were waiting for, the release of the passengers from the hijacked Indian Airlines jet. After 8 days of negotiations that seemed stalled, the breakthrough came this morning. India's foreign minister flew to Kandahar, bringing with him 3 Kashmiri militants whose release was demanded by the hijackers. Shortly after their arrival, the hijackers left the plane. Taliban soldiers hustled the hijackers out of the airport and ordered them out of the country. The 155 passengers were taken from the plane for a quick medical checkup before being flown to New Delhi, where they received an emotional welcome.
We have lived through a living hell. We saw death at 8 times. We not only suffered misery, we suffered psychological warfare by the terrorists.
Canadian diplomats met with Shirley Macklin, the only Canadian on board the hijacked jet. It's not clear where the hijackers will go now. Taliban officials are reported to be following the group to make sure they leave Afghanistan. That country borders on 5 others, including Pakistan and Iran. But the Red Cross is apparently offered to take the hijackers to the disputed Himalayan territory of Kashmir, if that's where they want to go. David Common, CBC News, New Delhi.
A news bombshell from Boris Yeltsin today. He quit as president of Russia. The new man in charge is Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. Elizabeth Palmer reports.
The president's New Year message was a shock. I am resigning, said Yeltsin, adding that a new millennium demanded new politicians. The president took an uncharacteristically humble tone. I am asking your forgiveness that I did not live up to your hopes and expectations, he said. Yeltsin's failing health and increasingly erratic behavior no doubt influenced his decision to resign on this symbolic occasion. But most analysts believe the move was largely designed to give Prime Minister Vladimir Putin the edge as Yeltsin's successor. Putin is riding high in the polls after fronting the Kremlin's hard line on Russia's Chechen offensive. It's widely believed that Putin won Yeltsin's blessing as his successor by agreeing not to pursue a criminal investigation of Yeltsin and his inner circle in the future. On the street, the reaction of the Russian people was muted. He is a sick man, he says. He has to go. He gave us some freedom, says this woman, especially the freedom of speech. Now, who knows what things will be like?
There was a time when millions of people thought of Yeltsin as a hero, but more recently, most Russians think of him simply as a corrupt tyrant or even a buffoon. But no one can deny that his resignation on the eve of the new millennium ushers in a new political era for Russia. Elizabeth Palmer, CBC News, Moscow.
In Ottawa, the Prime Minister paid tribute to Boris Yeltsin. Jean Chrétien said Yeltsin's determination and vision had transformed Russia and given it a place among democratic nations. Well, it's turning into a party around the world. Fireworks have now lit up the skies in many of the world's capitals to mark the beginning of the year 2000. Daryl McIntyre wraps up the celebrations so far.
It was Christ's birth in this small town that started all the counting, and tonight, thousands in Bethlehem marked the millennium with the release of 2,000 doves and a song for peace. Peace has been a common theme as New Year's breaks around the world. In Africa, where Nelson Mandela revisited a prison cell that was his home for 17 years, and in the South Pacific, where the very first people saw in the new year.
My dear child, take this torch of peace.
One thing missing from the celebrations, any hint of the Y2k bug. In fact, if there was any concern about it or any other Y2k chaos, you'd never know it from the crowds that turned out in Europe. From Paris to Athens to Madrid. In London, they promised the world's biggest Millennium Bash. That may be so far, but then in just a few hours, the new year will arrive in North America. Darrow McIntyre, CBC News, Toronto.
It's been quite a day so far, partying across all of Asia, through the Middle East, and now through Europe. Now the time zones clicking across the North Atlantic. Not too many people there witnessing the new millennium. The next big time zone is, of course, Newfoundland. And we're just a little more than 3 hours away from that. And nobody can party like Newfoundlanders. So we're expecting quite the scene in the harbor at St. John's later on this evening. We're going to take a whip around of all the different places, or many of them anyway, that we'll be going to in our coverage when it starts up in about an hour and a half after the Air Farce New Year's Eve special. In these next 35 minutes, we'll give you a chance to get a sense of what we'll have in store for you through the 6 hours of time zones in this country. But first, we want to check in on that internet connection. You know, we've been talking about it all day. Rex Murphy is monitoring the internet for us, our website, www.cbc.ca. And Rex has been the master of calculating your thoughts about the great Canadian moments and people.
This is surely a deep sarcasm you're introducing us with. I noticed Boris Yeltsin on that last clip. Was he having an early millennium celebration there?
He was partying like it was 1999, and that will be his year.
Yeah, probably was. We haven't got much change in the major leadership, but there's one interesting contention. In the poll on the great athletes of this century, as we all thought, Gretzky for most of the day has been light years ahead of everybody else, but now it's turning into an actual skating contest. You've got Gretzky at 33% of the votes, and we've got Kurt Browning at 31%. So there's a late rush to introduce another challenger to Mr. Gretzky.
I mean, you know, this is going to surprise a lot of people, but Kurt Browning, you know, he won the World Championship, I think it was 4 times. This was no flash in the pan as a great skater, and it's interesting that Kurt's fans are obviously hitting the old keyboard on the computers.
I think they're hitting the keyboard, and they are exerting a challenge to the one we thought was probably a pretty definite fix.
The night is young, though.
Otherwise, in the major categories like riders, that more or less stays the same. Lucy Maud Montgomery, Leanna Green Gables is still close to lead, Margaret Lawrence being second.
That is a close one.
I'll skip just to 2 or 3 more. Trudeau is again so far out in advance that he swallows everybody else, and you'll notice at the very bottom, once again, the rebuke to Mr. Mulroney continues. He's there only at 3%.
You know, if this was election night, we'd be declaring a winner on that one.
I think we would be declaring a winner on that one. In fact, we have a comment from one of the viewers there. We're referring to the 3% with Mr. Mulroney. It says here, I believe the CBC should use its considerable skills in trying to find out who those people are who are voting for Mr. Mulroney. So it persists.
You know, they're never fair. They're never fair.
It's a difficult one, and the last one we have here in terms of leaders.
We got to get out of this, Rex. We know that these are early.
These are early
calculations.
And we're going to also come up to some of the names that are not in these lists. We're getting a lot of run-in votes here, including you know whom.
Well, look, they're hustling us along here because we've got lots to show in this next 30 minutes. We want to give you a sense of what to expect in the evening. We've managed to talk to a lot of Canadians coast to coast to coast, and they're going to be taking part of the show. One of the people who we really wanted to be with us live tonight unfortunately can't, but she was able to record this message for us. Rita McNeil.
I'm so happy I had this opportunity to wish everyone in Canada a very happy New Year. This is a special New Year for all of us, and I'm going to be spending it at home here in Cape Breton. It's a time for family and friends, and I'd like to introduce you to 2 special people here. This is my granddaughter Rachel and my grandson Aiden, and I know they would love to wish you a happy New Year as well. Let's say it. Happy New Year, Canada!
And Happy New Year to Rita McNeil and her family. Great to have you back on the CBC, Rita, tonight. Let's go 3 hours away from the year 2000 arriving in Newfoundland, 3.5 hours for the rest of Atlantic Canada, including Charlottetown, where the host of Jonavision, Jonathan Torrance, is with us. Jonathan?
Peter, how are you?
Oh, listen, I'm great. It's been a spectacular show across Europe. We know, though, you and those 17,000 people gathered outside Province House are going to give us a show, too.
Yes, we are. In fact, 3.5 hours may be technically how long it is until the next millennium, but it sure doesn't feel like that here, where some small but mighty islanders have gathered. Hi, everybody. What's your name?
Jared Stretch.
And what do you think is going to happen in the new millennium?
Probably the same as the last millennium.
Yeah, because I know I haven't seen excitement like this since the last millennium, and that was big news for all of us here. How about you over here? What's your name?
Cynthia Dennis.
And have you made some resolutions for this coming year?
Yes, I'm going to be a nice person for once.
You're going to be a nice person for once. Well, congratulations. You have to set the bar low, and that way you're never disappointed. I know myself, Peter, just from a technological standpoint, I've been using the bank machine every 5 minutes, and my bank account is still empty, so no change at all. Technology seems to be working the way it always did. Carrie Wynn McLeod on the stage behind me, Lenny Gallant still to come, Guinness World Book of Records. Lots of action here in Charlottetown, plenty more to come. We'll send it back to you.
Okay, Jonathan, looking forward to talking to you later on with all that action coming out of Charlottetown.
Absolutely.
Let's cross the water to Sydney and Cape Breton in Nova Scotia. Lori Graham, who was practicing dancing earlier. What are you up to right now?
Peter, I'm here with a lot of people who are gathering, getting ready to bring in the new year. Are we having fun? Are we getting ready? Yes. It's a really exciting time here for a lot of people, including these two people. Lloyd and Marie Beck celebrated their 50th anniversary last night. Their family has come from all around the country to join them. This must be an exciting time for you.
It is.
And are you excited about this evening?
Yes.
Yes, it's a wonderful time, Peter, and lots of people are getting ready to celebrate, waiting for the Barra McNeils to come on and play. And you know, there's a lot of Celtic music that comes out of Cape Breton. One of our very own, Bruce Guthrow, couldn't be with us here in Sydney this evening because he's in Glasgow, Scotland. Bruce.
Hello Canada, I'm Bruce Guthrow, and when I'm not in Canada working on my solo career, I'm fronting the band Runrig in Scotland. And I just happened to be here for their Hogmanay, which is what we call New Year's, and just wanted to say Happy New Year to you in this very special day. I'm thinking of you, and there's a few other people who would like to wish you a Happy New Year too, so come on.
I'd like to wish Canada a Happy New Year, and I'd like you guys to join me. Would you mind doing that? Would you mind that? Let's hear a big rounding cheer when he's here. He's here. Happy New Year, Canada. Would you like to say Happy New Year to Canada?
That's great from Scotland. We'd like to wish Scotland Happy New Year as well. Happy New Year, Scotland. Back to you, Peter. We'll talk to you later.
Hey, not so fast, Lori. I got to see a close-up of that hat next to you, on your right.
What is that? You want to see
That
the hat? Well, I'm so glad we have time to show you. The Happy New Year 2000 hat and the glasses. What do you think of that now?
Very good. She should have marketed those. You could have made a lot with that hat.
Yes, I think you're right. Peter thinks you could have made a lot of money tonight with that.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Enjoy it there in Sydney, Nova Scotia. Lori Graham, thanks very much.
Talk to you later.
Okay, we're going to the other side of the country where Gloria Makarenko is standing by. Where are you? On top of Grouse Mountain, is that true?
On top of Grouse Mountain, I am, and it's a beautiful afternoon here, Peter. Now, when you think of Grouse Mountain, you normally think of either skiing or snowboarding, maybe a sleigh ride. You don't often think about ice skating on Grouse Mountain, but here we have indeed an outdoor ice rink. And with me here is the queen of ice skating in Canada in the 1970s, Olympic gold medalist Karen Magnuson, 1973. Nice to see you, Karen.
Nice to see you, Gloria.
Now,
nice
you were the queen of the ice in the 70s, and you've been coaching along some future kings and queens and princes of the ice we're going to see today.
Yeah, little Marilee Young that is here is one of our youngest at the Junior Nationals. She was 4th in all of Canada and has skated in front of about 16,000 people at the Air Canada Centre last year.
Oh, you must be so proud.
Yeah, I am. I'm coaching her and she's a delight to work with.
So you think a future champion as well?
You never know. You never know.
Well, tell us what Mira's doing now.
Well, she's doing her short program, trying in the snow. She's doing a wonderful job here.
It's a gorgeous setting for
her,
don't you
isn't
think?
it lovely? Yeah, this is a Beelman. Not many youngsters can do this spin. It's a reverse Beelman with a donut, she calls it.
And she's skating in front of the Millennium Clock. I don't know if there's an ice clock carved into the snow with 2000 in front of it. The time is 5 to 12, but don't let that confuse you.
Yeah. And now we have Eric Lyons coming out, who was novice champion last year and has now moved up to Junior Nationals, and he'll be off to Canadians in Calgary in end of January.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And he's a great young fellow from the North Shore. He's also a Bantam Rep A hockey player, and is just very good in both sports.
That's a wonderful taste of some future talent for Canada to be watching in the future. Karen Magnuson, thank you so much and Happy New Year to you.
Well, thank you and best of the millennium.
Okay, and Peter, lots more from Grouse Mountain tonight. We've got a torchlight parade, we've got Aboriginal procession and much, much more.
Spectacular setting you've got there. Great to see Karen Magnuson again. We'll talk to you again later, Gloria. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye, Peter.
Gloria Makarenko on top of Grouse Mountain outside Vancouver. And now, here we are in downtown Toronto where the sun set a couple of hours ago. And they're getting ready to party in this town. They've known to have a few good ones. And they'll especially be having one inside here, the Air Canada Centre, which is home tonight for the Tragically Hip concert. Our cameras are indoors there, and we'll be showing a number of the Tragically Hip selections as we warm up to midnight in the Central Canadian time zone for Ontario and Quebec. You won't want to miss that. You know, there's a lot of trouble for concerts in different parts of North America because of security concerns and people deciding to stay at home, and some really well-known acts were unable to sell out in different places. Some even had to cancel their shows. The Tragically Hip, who have this incredible record in Canada, sold out 2 nights of concerts, tonight and tomorrow night, and get it 22 minutes. All the tickets were gone. That's months ago. So this has been sold out for a long time, and we're looking forward to seeing their show later on tonight right here as part of our special. Well, we're going to take another short break, and 2000 Today continues right after this.
I think it was Canada's centennial in 1967. Not only we inaugurated our new Canadian flag, but I understand that people throughout the country were celebrating the event. And also we created in Montreal Man in His World, la Terre des Hommes. Et finalement, l'équipe de baseball des Expos de Montréal ont été formées en 1967.
U.S. will know the power of chaos.
Flex with the rocket. To reach the U.S., use Coca-Cola and save without switching.
It's just $1 for every 10 minutes or less. Anytime to anywhere in the U.S.
Just dial 101-5566, then 1, then the number.
Dial 101-5566 to save without switching. Very smart. Prepare to launch.
Don't tell me he's launching us.
He's launching us.
I asked you not to tell me that.
Dell Canada introduces the first great deal of the millennium. We've bundled together the perfect system for you and yours. Family values. With an Intel Celeron processor at 500 megahertz. 1 year of internet access, color printer, PC camera, Canadian encyclopedia, and more. Just $19.99 after HP rebate. All you need to surf, to work, to play together. For $19.99, Dell eValue saves you $180. Dell gives you everything you see here for you and your family for $1,999, or as easy as $60 a month. Call now for Dell Family Values with an Intel Celeron processor at 500 megahertz. Our bundle saves you a bundle. The first Dell deal of the millennium. To order, go directly to Dell.
On the next Mansbridge One-on-One. Who's your person of the century? Well, we have some ideas for you. Every guest on Mansbridge One-on-One this year recorded their person of the century. Join us this week to find out who.
Monday on CBC News World. The News Center newscasts live on the hour throughout the day on CBC News World.
I think I would put a collection of novels from Canada's finest authors because I think they convey our politics, our culture, our people, and our landscape.
I'd put my student loan documents because it's going to take me well into the 21st century to pay for them.
I think I'd put the end of apartheid in South Africa. It really represents how our society has progressed.
I think I would put a copy of the free trade document because it'll be interesting to see how Canada's role and identity has changed in a globalized economy. I would put in a CD of the Spice Girls. I know it sounds funny, but definitely the Spice Girls, because I've never seen so many young girls show such confidence, and I've never seen the term girl power go so far.
Girl power!
Girl power, one of the big moments of the past century. As we approach midnight, is coming up in less than 3 hours now in Newfoundland, and we'll be covering live the celebrations there. Now, a few moments ago, we told you that the Air Farce New Year's Eve special comes up. It's 20 minutes, 21 minutes away from now, and that has, of course, been a tradition at the CBC for years now on New Year's Eve. A very special broadcast with our friends from Air Farce coming up in 21 minutes. You won't want to miss a moment of that. Meanwhile, we spoke a few moments ago about the Air Canada Centre tonight here in Toronto, where the Tragically Hip are performing. The CBC's Ralph Benmergui is outside the Air Canada Centre. Are they starting to arrive yet? Concert doesn't start, what, for another hour or two?
Well, you know, it's getting kind of busy. The people are starting to flow in. At 7:30, they're all supposed to be in their seats, but this is a rock concert, not supposed to be on time. These people are all getting... Are you guys getting ready to go in? Are you freezing? Yeah, they're freezing. Everybody's freezing, but soon they'll be in there and they'll be boiling, and that's the way it is. We'll have the Sky Diggers, the Tragically Hip, the Mahones, all kinds of people are going to show up. It's like a marathon. We, of course, will have the Tragically Hip live at about 20 minutes to midnight, and then about 2 minutes after midnight, we'll put them back on again and have a little more rock and roll.
All right, Ralph, thanks very much. Stay warm, eh? You're the first person to complain about the weather so far.
You know,
across the world, since Auckland, New Zealand, where it was raining, everybody said it's fine.
You're sitting in there, you're warm, and I'm coming to get you later.
Ralph Benmergui outside the Air Canada Centre in Toronto. North of Toronto at Bala, another big concert tonight. The Blue Rodeo playing. Adrian Arso is with us. Adrian.
Hi there, Peter. Did you say Ralph was the first one to complain about the weather?
Now, don't start.
Can I be number two?
A little cold up there, a little chilly?
It's cold, but it's going to get very hot and very crazy here pretty soon, I figure.
Now, this is the Key to Bala, as the sign says right behind you. This is a big hot spot in what they call cottage country north of Toronto, right?
Absolutely. Well, we're in Muskoka, and you know, it's one of those perfect cottage country kind of nights. A little bit of wood smoke in the air, the lake's starting to freeze, that sort of thing. And this Key to Bala is an institution here. In the summertime, maybe 40, 50 years ago, people would start coming here, start listening to the bands. They'd come by boat, and the reputation developed that this was a great place, you know, to have a good night out on a warm summer night and listen to bands. And, you know, Guy Lombardo used to come, the Dorsey brothers, Duke Ellington. So this reputation over the years has built, and Blue Rodeo has caught on to this, and they love playing here. They've been here for years. Guy
Lombardo to Blue Rodeo. That's quite a performance.
I know, it's a bit of a stretch,
grouping.
I know. It's a couple generations down the road, but
now,
this...
How many people can get in there? Is this a big concert?
Well, they tell us they can squeeze about 1,000 people in there, but, you know, given it's the winter, you got some big coats happening. I figure we're probably going to be looking at maybe 600 to 800 people. We've got a couple of bands lined up before Blue Rodeo. And you know, it's one of these places, I don't know if you've ever been in here, but you don't so much hear the music as feel it in the core of your being. They were doing some sound checks earlier, and I was trying to write on a pad, and the walls were shaking. I could see the posters shaking, and my pen wasn't working very well, so it's going to be very loud. Very loud and very good, I'm sure. The camera's in there, all set up to take a number of hits from Blue Rodeo. We're looking forward to that. When do they get on stage? Do you know roughly? Well, it's funny. Jim Cuddy is actually playing in Barrie, playing a solo act first. Then he's going to drive up here, and the plan is that they'll be on they'll be hitting, you know, the guitars and stuff at about 11:30. That's what we're aiming for, and they're going to play right through until they decide they've had enough. No, I love that. That is a classically Canadian story. Jim Cuddy, one of the big class Canadian rock legends. And he's driving up from one concert to get to a New Year's Eve concert. You know, we saw the Eurythmics earlier. They were, you know, they probably chop her around. Got to leave you, Adrian. We'll be talking to you later because I hear that train whistling. It's coming down the track. And we know that this is the train from Halifax. It's going to Truro. And on board is the only person who can compete with that train sound is our own Colleen Jones. Now, I don't know whether we've connected yet with Colleen. We're going to try. We'll connect with her when this
when this train stops. It's going to make a special stop for us so we can talk to She told us she may be driving the train, but that didn't look like her up there. And that's probably a good thing for the other passengers on the Halifax to Truro train ride. A great idea. Colleen was on there with Ian James. Let's see whether we see any familiar waves from the window here. She's on there somewhere, and we'll be talking to her in a few moments. Well, she's somewhere on that train, and as we said, we will talk to her and see how that trip is progressing. She's coming now, you tell me? Really? Well, let's hold on and see. Because we need an update. And nobody can give us an update like Colleen. One of the mainstays of the CBC Morning Show. Every morning you can catch Colleen doing the weather, doing the sports. She's somewhere on that train. There she is. Wave to us. We got you. We just can't hear you. We're trying to read lips here, Colleen. It sounds like you're saying you're having a great time. Yes. And you're looking forward to talking to us later. Yes. All right, Colleen Jones on board a Via train outside Halifax, and we'll be connecting with her a little later on. Well, from Halifax to Winnipeg, Diana Swain joins us. Diana.
Hi, Peter. We're out here on the skating rink at the Forks. We've got some skaters who are much better than I am from the Winnipeg Figure Skating Foundation, the best amateur skaters in Winnipeg, taking to the ice today. It is a perfect night for New Year's Eve. Just a little bit of snow falling. It's a little bit cool, which makes me look kind of cool in what I'm wearing, I think. And it's a great night to be outside for a family New Year's Eve, which is exactly what the Forks is about. This is just one venue, but they're expecting tens of thousands of people down here, which is pretty much what we had during the Pan Am Games. And there's lots of other things going on around town. I can hear some drums going on in my ear. That must mean that Chris Walby's over by one of the tents where they're making bannock. No doubt he's at the food tent.
How are we doing over here? Listen, we're in one of our traditional areas right here at TP. What a great room in here. I'm with Clarence Nipanak, his wife Barbara, and of course Kevin, the traditional singer right now. We're making some bannock right now, or scone as the Scottish people call it. Great stuff. Little smoke in here, but they tell me it's not normally like this. We just got a lot of people running around here. Great exhibition right now. We've also got something downtown at the Thunderbird right now. They're all coming down. I tell you, what a night. The Candlelight March, candles lit by people coming from the four corners of the city. What a party, people. I'm telling you right now, Manitoba, Winnipeg is where it's at.
Chris Walby joining us live from Winnipeg. And Chris, of course, one of the mainstays of the CFL on CBC, our football coverage. Former Blue Bomber himself. And hey, when you listen to Chris, there's no doubt what was happening in the huddle. When Chris spoke, they listened. Even though he wasn't the quarterback, if he wanted to speak, everybody listened. We're going from Winnipeg to Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, where we're very fortunate to be joined tonight on stage in the casino in Prince Albert by one of Canada's greatest country and western singers, Paul Brandt. Paul, you just doing a sound check there, getting ready for tonight?
Northern Lights Casino. We're very excited about it. What a cool night. We've been actually following a lot of your broadcasts, and it's exciting to see everything that's happening along the world, and we're looking forward to getting this whole thing started too.
Boy, I'll say it was quite the sight across Europe, watching all those different performances and the excitement there. Give us a hint, if you can, of what we'll be seeing later tonight when we join your concert for a bit.
Well, we just try and roll this party out onto stage and make sure that everyone's having a good time. I think that the key to tonight is just going to try to make this as upbeat a performance as possible and have a great big party here for the new year.
And have you had any sense already how the people of Prince Albert are reacting to all this? They're getting pretty excited?
Yeah, I had a chance, I took off for lunch today to Tim Hortons, actually, and had a chance to run into a bunch of people, and they're just all very excited, looking forward to what the new year has to offer, and I think it's going to be a good time tonight. The spirits are definitely high here.
All right, Paul Brandt joining us from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. He'll be performing a little later tonight at the casino there in Prince Albert, and we'll be covering some of his concert live which is great of him to let us in there to watch this. It'll be quite the night in Prince Albert and so many other communities across this country. We'll continue to tell you a little more about what you'll be seeing on our live broadcast when it begins a little more than an hour from now after the special Royal Canadian Air Force New Year's Eve special. Don't go away. We'll be right back on 2000 Today.
I put in a bird, the northern loon, and I'd put it in for the beauty of its cry. There's no sound more evocative of the Canadian wilderness than a loon. It's the most Canadian of birds. In the wintertime, it heads south to paddle around warm waters, but it doesn't make any noise when it's in the warm waters of the south. To hear a loon cry, you've got to go into the Canadian wilderness.
Ever think that maybe, just maybe, you could wash that dry clean only sweater yourself? Introducing Dry Out. Care for dry clean only clothes comes home. Just use the stain remover. Slip your sweaters, skirts, even jackets into the reusable bag. Drop in a moist Dry Out cloth. Pop in your household dryer for 30 minutes. Dry Out gently helps clean and freshen your dry clean only clothes right at home. It works. It has even earned the Woolmark and Good Housekeeping seal. New Dry Out. Suddenly dry clean only? Isn't.
There's more to crispy flavor in our bite-sized taters.
It's time you tried McCain Tasty Taters. Baked so they're crispy and golden brown on the outside to capture all that tender potato flavor inside.
Crispy bite-sized taters that lock in all the flavor.
Mealtime, snack time, anytime. McCain Tasty Taters now come in 5 crispy bite-sized flavors.
Try your favorite flavor in our bite-sized taters.
McCain Tasty Taters. Crispy flavor in a bite-sized tater.
3 years ago, my IT guys told me there'd be 2 kinds of businesses. Those with a vision to master the internet and those without. And we didn't want to be the second kind. So we called Dell. Dell came to see us and showed us how to use the internet for direct relationships with our customers, suppliers, everyone who's a part of our business. With Dell's support, there's no limit to where we can go. We always knew we needed the internet. We just didn't know how badly.
Be direct. Dell. Dell servers use Intel Pentium 3 processors.
I think it was when Terry Fox ran halfway across Canada to raise money for cancer.
Well, I think it was the Pan Am Games in 1999 because it was the second time Canada came in second.
I think it was when the Canadian flag was made in 1965.
Some great choices from Canada's youth about the Canadian event of the past century. You can register your choice on our internet website at www.cbc.ca. 8 minutes away from the Royal Canadian Air Force's New Year's Eve special. You won't want to miss a minute of it. But before we go to that, we're going to Banff, Alberta, where Paul Hunter is standing by. On the streets of Banff, and Paul, they tell me they're about to begin the Wapiti Walk. What's that?
The Wapiti Walk, indeed. The Wapiti is an Aboriginal term for elk, and in Banff there are plenty and plenty of elk. I'm surrounded by elk now, tiny little elk, 2-legged elk. The elk are everywhere in Banff, and I know you'll be excited by this, Peter. We have the spiritual leader of the elk who's going to lead the Wapiti Walk, none other than Elk Guy. Elk Guy, how's it going, and what's going on tonight?
Well, tonight is the night, Paul, of the Wapiti Walk, December 31st. You can see everyone here. We're all going to be loud and proud.
Noisy elk.
And make our way up to the band center. I've had people working hard for weeks on making large puppets and hats and whatnot to celebrate our hooved and antlered friends, the elk and other animals in the park.
Interesting neckwear. What's the deal on the collar?
Well, this year, different from last, I got radio collared, as happens to many elk in town. Now the park can monitor my movements, but it's for my own benefit. Although I'm still quick, they might not catch me yet, and I might not be relocated.
Elk Guy, may I call you Elk Guy?
You may call me Elk Guy.
Thanks very much, Elk Guy. And Peter, it doesn't end there. We have the ever fashion conscious Millennium Man has come to Banff to bring in the new millennium. May I call you, is it Mr. Man or Millennium Man?
Millennium Man.
Millennium Man?
Millennium Man.
What are you doing for the next 6 hours, and then what happens at midnight?
Well, I'm going up with the Wapiti Walkers up to Banff first night at the Banff Center. Up there, we're going to take our magical lanterns that you've seen. We're taking them up there to help bring in the millennium in Banff, like people all over the world are doing with the symbols of light and fire. We have a bonfire, we have a laser show, and we want our lanterns to be a shining symbol of the Millennium Man.
Thanks, Millennium Man. And his once in a millennium costume, I might add, Peter.
That is a tough question, you know, Paul, trying to decide whether, do you call him Millennium or do you call him Mr. Man, you know?
I've been wondering about this all night, so I think we're comfy with Millennium Man.
So they're ready in Banff, they're getting anxious and excited. What else is going to happen there tonight?
Well, there's also a big party at the Banff Springs, you know, a fabulous, fabulous hotel, like one of you know, the 20th century castle. There's themed rooms, we'll hope to show you pictures of that later on tonight, throughout the sort of 20th century, different theme of each decade in each room. Big party there. We're going to be up at the Fine Arts Center a little later on, and we'll come back and we'll let you know how it's going up there.
Okay, Paul Hunter reporting to us live from the streets of Banff, Alberta, and we'll be back there later on this evening as Alberta welcomes the new millennium, and that's a few hours yet for Alberta, another 6 hours before the new year hits in Alberta. Now, a couple of moments ago, I was telling you the Royal Canadian Air Force, the New Year's Eve special coming up on the CBC main network. That's 5 minutes from now. On News World, which is also, of course, broadcasting this special coverage, has been for the last, where are we at now? Hour 16 hours of live coverage of the millennium, clicking through the time zones of the world. On News World, a special 1 hour broadcast including highlights of these past 16 hours. And then rejoining us after the Air Force special in 1 hour's time at 9 o'clock here in Eastern Canada for the continuation of our live coverage through the evening, through all the time zones of Canada, right through to Hawaii and beyond. If there's a place in the world that will be celebrating the year 2000 tonight, you're going to see it right here live on the CBC. Now, we're hoping for some pictures from Edmonton of an event that took place there a little earlier this evening. Do we have those pictures? We do have those pictures. Well, let's look at them now. We don't have them. We do have them. Let's make a decision. Here they are. This is called the World Beat Powwow. For 12 hours today, starting at noon, the First Nations peoples are hosting a multilingual, intercultural powwow in Edmonton City Hall. These are scenes of the Grand Entry, which is a ceremonial procession of elders and dancers in full regalia, drummed in with an honor song. They bring with them banners, ceremonial objects, and artifacts representing the different tribes and nationalities. First-time event is significant in that it also includes the elders and dancers from a number of other cultures braided into the traditional powwow structure. Just a few of the cultures participating here include the Filipino, Chinese, East Indian, Nepalese, African, Celtic, Hungarian, and First Nations represented by Métis, Cree, Blackfoot, Blood, and Siksika. Well, that was some of the highlights of the World Beat Powwow.
I'm at the Ranchman's in
Lori
Calgary,
McNaughton
Alberta.
and Ian Tyson. Let's listen to Lori.
Happy New Year.
Same to you, Lori.
Well, thank you very much.
You
I think it's
betcha.
going to be a great night.
I hope so.
Now, do you have any thoughts?
We'll only have one shot.
Well, that's right. That's right. Now, do you have any thoughts about the year 2000? How do you feel about it?
It was a great year for me, and big year. Now I have a huge tax bill, those wonderful guys in Ottawa, so that's why I'm here.
To bring in...
Pay them off and go back to ranching.
And how is ranching?
Ranching's pretty good this year. It could be better, but And as long as I keep singing, it'll keep me in the ranching business, and I enjoy both very much. So,
anything you'd like to tell the rest of the country?
I just wish them all the very best, and for those zany guys in Ottawa, our taxes are too high. You know that? Way too high. You know, that's why we have to work all the time. And you know,
see if they can do something about that in the year 2000.
Yeah, you know, we work hard and they take all our money. So other than that, I think Canada's still a pretty good place to live in.
All right, well, we're looking forward to your show later on tonight, and we'll bring that to you later.
All right, Laurie, thanks very much. Laurie McNaughton with Ian Tyson, and yes, we will be going back live to Ian Tyson for part of his concert in Calgary. Never loses the opportunity to send a message. He's been doing it through song and obviously through interviews for years now. Well, we're going to go live now to Ucluelet on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Look at this, the last sunset in Canada in the 1900s. The sun beginning to dive down into the ocean in the far west. If you've ever been to the west coast of Vancouver Island, you'll see sights you'd never imagined in this country. It is spectacular. All up the coast from Ucluelet to Tofino, short stretch there of, 18, 20 miles or kilometers. Spectacular beaches, a rugged landscape. We'll be going back to a beach party in Ucluelet later tonight, but there she goes, the sun disappearing into the ocean. You've seen it, the last sunset of the 1900s in Canada. Well, we got 30 seconds to wrap this up. Please stay with us. The great Airfire special on the CBC main network, a recap of the past 16 hours on News World, and then coming up just an hour from now, everything from the tragically hip and Blue Rodeo in southern Ontario to Great Big Sea in the St. John's Harbour, along with Kim Stockwood. We've got bands, entertainers, singers, and your thoughts and your votes for the Canadian of the Century. Don't miss it, right here on CBC.
Good evening, I'm Ben Chen. 8 days of horror are over for 155 hostages held for ransom on a hijacked jet parked in Afghanistan. In the end, the hijackers got what they wanted, the release of 3 other Kashmiri militants, and the hostages got what they desperately wanted, their freedom. David Common reports from the final stop on a long, terrifying trip.
This was the moment the hostages and the relatives were waiting for. The release of the passengers from the hijacked Indian Airlines jet. After 8 days of negotiations that seemed stalled, the breakthrough came this morning. India's foreign minister flew to Kandahar, bringing with him 3 Kashmiri militants whose release was demanded by the hijackers.
Our primary concern was the earliest termination of the hijacking and the safe return of all passengers and crew.
Shortly after their arrival, the hijackers left the plane. Taliban soldiers hustled the hijackers out of the airport and ordered them out of the country. The 155 passengers were taken from the plane for a quick medical checkup before being flown to New Delhi, where they received an emotional welcome.
We have lived through a living hell. We saw death at 8 times. We not only suffered misery, we suffered psychological warfare by the terrorists.
Very happy New Year to everybody. Thank you all Indians for playing all of us. Thanks a lot.
Canadian diplomats met with Shirley Macklin, the only Canadian on board the hijacked jet. It's not clear where the hijackers will go now. Taliban officials are reported to be following the group to make sure they leave Afghanistan. That country borders on 5 others, including Pakistan and Iran. But the Red Cross is apparently offered to take the hijackers to the disputed Himalayan territory of Kashmir, if that's where they want to go. David Common, CBC News, New Delhi.
And as David Common mentioned, the Canadian on board that Indian Airlines plane, Shirley Macklin of Winnipeg, is alive and well and in New Delhi. And as Cameron McIntosh reports, her family is ecstatic.
She just landed. I can't speak to you now, I'm sorry.
An embrace in relief. Just hours ago, friends and family of Shirley Macklin didn't know if she would live to see the new year. Macklin was overseas doing charity work with sick children. When the hijacking ended, her son Hartley waited eagerly to hear from his mother.
Can't talk right now, I'm sorry. I'm waiting for Mom's call.
1 hour later, it happened in the middle of a family news conference.
Did they hurt you at all? I can't tell you how pleased I am to hear that you're okay.
His mother explained how she survived, living in a filthy airplane, witnessing the execution of another hostage, then sitting next to that man's wife for almost a week.
I currently believe that justice needs to be served.
But surprisingly, he says his mother isn't ready to come home.
Her expression was, I haven't even been to India yet. And she doesn't want to let the bastards change her plans.
So he's going to her.
I really feel like that's what's going to really make it feel real, that she's okay.
With one brother already there, and Air Canada offering a free ride, Hartley Macklin and another family member plan to meet her there by the beginning of next week. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A bombshell from Boris Yeltsin today. He quit as president of Russia. The new man in charge is Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. Here's Elizabeth Palmer.
The president's New Year message was a shock. I am resigning, said Yeltsin, adding that a new millennium demanded new politicians. The president took an uncharacteristically humble tone. I am asking your forgiveness that I did not live up to your hopes and expectations, he said. Yeltsin's failing health and increasingly erratic behavior no doubt influenced his decision to resign on this symbolic occasion. But most analysts believe the move was largely designed to give Prime Minister Vladimir Putin the edge as Yeltsin's successor. Putin is riding high in the polls after fronting the Kremlin's hard line on Russia's Chechen offensive. It's widely believed that Putin won Yeltsin's blessing as his successor by agreeing not to pursue a criminal investigation of Yeltsin and his inner circle in the future. On the street, the reaction of the Russian people was muted. He is a sick man, he says. He has to go. He gave us some freedom, says this woman, especially the freedom of speech. Now, who knows what things will be like. There was a time when millions of people thought of Yeltsin as a hero, but more recently most Russians think of him simply as a corrupt tyrant or even a buffoon. But no one can deny that his resignation on the eve of the new millennium ushers in a new political era for Russia. Elizabeth Palmer, CBC News, Moscow.
In Ottawa, the Prime Minister paid tribute to Boris Yeltsin. Jean Chrétien said Yeltsin's determination and vision had transformed Russia and given it a place among democratic nations. And in Washington, U.S. President Bill Clinton said Yeltsin's commitment to democracy was his greatest accomplishment.
His lasting achievement has been dismantling the communist system and creating a vital democratic process within a constitutional framework. The fact that Prime Minister Putin assumes responsibility today as acting president in accordance with the Constitution is the latest example of President Yeltsin's achievement.
Clinton said he liked Yeltsin and felt that he was straightforward and kept his promises. In Quebec, about 700 people still haven't been allowed back to their homes after a huge fire last night east of Montreal. 2 freight trains collided, setting off a massive explosion. One of the trains was carrying diesel fuel and gasoline. Authorities believe a conductor and an engineer died in the accident. They still don't know why the collision happened. BC Rail's labor dispute with some of its workers was on the move today. Locked out workers removed the picket lines they set up yesterday at a port near Delta, BC, but they closed down a BC Rail subsidiary in Vancouver for a little while. The workers have been locked out since Monday. Well, it looks like there's good news for the workers at Cape Breton's Sydney Steel Plant. A partnership of American companies has agreed to buy the troubled mill. Frank King has the story.
The steel mill has dominated Sydney and its economy for almost 100 years. In the late 1960s, the mill's owner gave up on it and thousands were facing layoff. The provincial government stepped in and took it over. But 30 years and almost $3 billion later, it's had enough.
Today, I believe we have secured the best possible option with a sale that makes sense. It is in the best interest of the workers and the taxpayers of Nova Scotia.
The new owners have agreed to pay $30 million over a 10-year period. Government officials say it's a good deal for the province. Some critics say no one knows whether it's a good deal or not, as the final agreement won't be completed until April. But for some of the steelworkers and their families, it's a relief.
I feel like I had a ton of bricks lifted from my shoulders.
It's been nerve-wracking. I'm telling you, I haven't got a fingernail left. And I'm glad we're still here anyway. That's the main thing.
There are close to 750 workers at the plant now. The new owners will likely run it with about 150 fewer employees. About that many are close to retirement. Frank King, CBC News, Sydney.
Well, Europe has joined Asia and Australia in the year 2000, and still there is very little evidence of the dreaded millennium bug. Darrow McIntyre reports.
It was Christ's birth in this small town that started all the counting, and tonight, thousands in Bethlehem marked the millennium with the release of 2,000 doves and a song for peace. Peace has been a common theme as New Year's breaks around the world. In Africa, where Nelson Mandela revisited a prison cell that was his home for 17 years, and in the South Pacific, where the very first people saw in the new year.
My dear child, take this torch of peace.
One thing missing from the celebrations, any hint of the Y2k bug. In fact, if there was any concern about it or any other Y2k chaos, you'd never know it from the crowds that turned out in Amsterdam or Paris, Athens, Warsaw, or Madrid. In London, they promised the world's biggest Millennium Bash, and while that may be so far, in just a few hours, the new year will arrive in North America. Darrow McIntyre, CBC News.
And here at home, the country is counting down and getting set to celebrate now that there are so many signs that the switch to Y2K will be okay. Here's the CBC's Susan Bonner.
Many Canadians are shopping their way into the new millennium, stocking up on supplies, just in case.
Figure I better get a few extra batteries, make sure that the lights do go out after midnight, that I've got a little bit of light in the house.
Water's the top seller. We're selling probably 2 to 3 times the amount of water that we sell in a regular week.
But across the country, stages are set for worry-free parties to ring in the new year, and there is little sign of panic anywhere in the country. Not from emergency crews.
We're very confident that it's not an issue, that things have been dealt with.